Alright, today we're having a look at the Honey Hive by Shookie Monster. Alright, so here we are in the Honey Hive by Shookie Monster, and as the title base says, this is a bit of a throwback to an LBP1 series of levels that I unfortunately did not get a chance to play before they were taken down, but we'll talk about that more when we get back to the hub. This came up in relation to some talk on Twitch, Janaktet. Hi, that was me just falling into the water because I didn't realize that's what it was. Some talk on Twitter about kind of recapturing the feel of these old LBP levels thanks to Funky Bones. And Shookie had recommended this, and I'm just really looking forward to playing it because I do like Shookie's levels a fairly good deal. Yeah, I almost ran off that. That would have been completely my fault, by the way. That would have been 100% my fault. At least there's a checkpoint. Appreciate that. The music as well seems to be fairly solid. I like the whole look of the level. It's definitely got a nice poppy feel, which I do appreciate sometimes. Sometimes you want a little bit of a darker level, but oh, let's go. But not always. That's not always what you want. Hi. This is me. This is on me. Let me get our head in the game. We can do this. We've got the kind of the same camera issues that have come up with other 3D platformers, unfortunately. The character as well is pretty zippy, although the platforms, for the most part, except for those rotating ones, feel relatively forgiving. It's less of a chance, I feel like, you're going to overshoot and end up in the soup. Hi! This is a bit reminiscent of Yukamone's Honey levels, of which I'm going to have to check the name of that series. Although it definitely feels enough of its own thing that it's not necessarily aping the style. And Yu has also done levels in LBP with like bee themes and honey themes. It's not an unusual theme to have come up. Ooh, we got a secret. We got a secret. I will love fixed cameras, I think, until the day that well, not the day that I die, probably. I mean, we'll find some kind of compromise before then, but let's see. So, be careful, watch your step. I love puns. I think anybody who knows me, even though I'm not very good at making them, but as evinced by my name, I am a fan of clever puns. I will be careful, Shookie, I promise. Now I see there. Ooh, look at you. You've got a hole. There was a hole here, but now it's still here. Actually, the hole is still here. I should have expected that. This is not Silent Hill. There's nothing like Silent Hill here. And one thing I am noticing, and sometimes I find with these types of platformers, it doesn't feel like there's a strong sense of direction, like I need to be going someplace, which isn't always the bad thing. Sometimes just having a little bit of exploratory fun is fine, but a bit of a... Stop! A little bit of direction, I think, can help maintain a flow in a level. Like some objective, some goal to do. Unless you're working a hub world. Oh, that was close. That was close. It was tricky. That was a tricky jump. I feel like we missed something back the other way. Like there was a choice of 2 different paths that we could go in. And I will try to check those out when we get to the pips. Ooh, that was close. Very close. Very close. We don't want to die. That would be terrible. Oh, I don't want to besmirch the good name of this very fine level with my death. To put my blood on the hands of Shookie would be very rude as a reviewer. Well, I mean, it would be slightly rude. Really, if any deaths that show up in this level are 100% totally on me as a mediocre and mediocre only platformer, but I'm enjoying it so far. It's very chill, it's very nice. Like I said, it's got that good peppy look to it. And even though we've got some of what do you even call it? It's like the superflect materials that we see show up sometimes. I think they work here for the most part. They don't always work, but in this case at least, I feel like they do. That just might be me. I might just be charmed and enchanted. I am sometimes easily charmed and enchanted. We've only got 7 seconds. I need to get to solid ground so I can say goodbye. Well, you head back to the hub. 3 seconds. There is no time. Don't die. Don't die. Bugger. Hi. We're going to talk about this more back at the hub, and we'll see you there. See yas. And we're back. And the Honey Hive by Shookie Monster. And I'd say it's definitely a softer green circle, but I found that the charming points did raise it up enough for me. It was a very enjoyable level, and I feel like there's a lot of potential in that level. And since, as we saw at the end of the video, it is a work in progress, and we hopefully can be expecting more. The last update to this level was March 30th, 2020, unless I'm misremembering, which I personally possibly could be. But yeah, hopefully we will be getting more out of this. The points that I had that were against the level, and we've kind of gone over them a number of times. The big one, it's a point endemic to a lot of 3D platformers that I've played so far in Dreams, and it's the free-flowing camera, the player-controlled free-flowing camera. There are times when I could definitely see why you might want that. You know, if you're in areas where there's not really like a lot of danger, there's not a lot of chance of getting killed, you really want to show off, you know, what you've created. You want to show up the scope of your level, and having the player be able to control that camera, take a look at wherever it is that they're going to need to be looking or would like to look. That's one reason that you might want to have that. Another reason is to kind of force the player to look in nooks and crannies for secrets. There are a number of little red... Is it a honeycomb if it's just one cell? Like honey cells, I guess? Little red honey cells that are worth extra points scattered throughout the level, and being able to kind of control the camera, and the player has to creep around and see everything in order to find them. I could see the purpose there. The problem comes more when we're dealing with... platforms that could result in player death, and especially platforms that are moving or rotating. Rotating ones are the big offenders I find here. We've got a number of sections where there's some rotation going on. Either you've got 3 of those honey cells linked together and you're rotating around on them, or you've got a couple of honey cells that are rotating around a central pillar. But constantly having to move the camera to keep up with the pace of the movement of the platform. And if you do it too fast, it can be a little bit nauseating, but if you don't do it at all, it's really easy to miss, you know, where you're actually supposed to be jumping to, and it adds another layer of frustration into those areas. So something similar, there's an area where you've got like hinged honey cells, and you'll jump onto those, and you're gonna have to head over a little bit to the right and onto the next one there. So you're trying to get the timing of the hinges down, but again, you're also trying to keep that camera moved so that you can see where your next landing point is. In those areas in particular, having a locked camera set by the creator, I think, would do a fairly large service to the level. And something else that we talked about in the video is I felt that there was a little bit of a lack of direction in the level. Now, that's actually possibly a little bit more on me than on the creation itself, because the level, it does a really good job of giving assumed scope, that the implied scope perhaps is a better way to put it. You've got a lot of things that are kind of going on in the background. You've got a lot of areas that are inaccessible, and when you're breezing through it first, and it feels kind of like I could go to those areas, but actually it's much more linear experience than you might expect from first blush like that. So the chance of kind of like getting lost, it was a lot less than what I was expecting, what I was kind of impressing on the level myself as I was playing through it. Still something that maybe a little bit of signage or something just to kind of give the player an impression, especially if there's branching paths that, you know, these are areas that you can get to. A very, very small detail, something very tiny, but something I think that could be perhaps easily improved, is with the checkpoints, to have them actually light up or change color at least a little bit to show that the player has triggered them, in case that they miss it, making it pretty obvious to the player. But that's a really minor point. I think the only really major point here is the cameras. Now, as far as the positive points, and it's, as I said in the video, It's very poppy looking, it's very cheerful, it's very friendly looking. It's got a nice music track that's going on in the background that I really did happen to enjoy. I don't know necessarily that it evoked LBP exactly. I can't compare it specifically to the levels that Shookie had mentioned in her tweet, because those levels were no longer up. I did play through 2 of her levels though that seem to be similarly themed. These were done in LBP2. Honey Hive Hero Race, which was a really fun, pretty fast-paced hero platformer that I had a lot of good time with. I would definitely recommend that if you're playing LBP. And the Honeycomb Canyons, which was interesting, a little bit of a slower one, used not always to the best of effect, but a creatinator where you could shoot out little bits of honey that would stick, and then you had to build bridges to get along through different places. But both of those areas share a similar aesthetic with what we've seen here in Honey Hive. And I think it's a well-handled aesthetic, and it apes the aesthetic fairly well, but I don't know necessarily that it feels quite like Little Big Planet. Certainly not like old school 10 years ago Little Big Planet 1 levels, because those were much more constrained in how they could have been presented. They were much more constrained in how they could have been decorated and designed as far as things like gameplay and logic and look. So while I don't know if it quite hits those buttons, I still think that it is a really enjoyable level. Gameplay isn't, for the most part, particularly difficult. There are some things that I kind of ended up screwing up myself a lot because, like I said, I'm really not that great a platformer. But I really did enjoy the platforming, what there was in there. And I like the collection, and there's a little scoreboard at the end where you can check this out what you're doing that gives a bit of replayability. I'm not sure exactly how replayable this level is, this creation is, as it is right now, but I think as it expands, then we might see a lot more replayability coming out to the fore. I'm really looking forward to what Shookie Monster is going to be doing with this one and the next step in her their project. I'm so sorry, Shookie, I don't remember if you're a guy, gal, or an MB pal. That's my fault, that's completely on me. But I look forward very much to the next step in their creator's journey. But I think I've said enough for this one, and I've made one really embarrassing mistake already, so maybe it's time to wrap things up. So from me, Risco, here in Osaka, to all of you out there, wherever you may happen to be, thank you, arigato, sayonara, see you, and ciao.